Today you're going to assemble your 3D vases of flowers. To start with, before you cut, you're going to want to make some tabs around your vase so that you can make it stick out. Those will be the areas where you'll be gluing it on. I started by gluing down one side, letting it dry, and then gluing the other side. Artists, when I cut out my flowers, I cut out 2 or 3 different layers so that I could put them together. I'm going to give you some examples of how I work, but I want you to make this vase of flowers your own and use your own ideas too, please. I want these to be 3-dimensional is to start to bend the petals. I can do that around my pencil just by kind of wrapping to bend some of those petals. I'm going to do the same thing underneath. Now, if you're having a hard time getting to some of these areas, you may want to take your cuts a little bit closer to the middle. As I continue working, I like to lay out my flowers so I can see how they'll look together. You can see if I can start to glue this together, it can make it look a little bit more 3-dimensional. Stick some glue right in the middle of that. It's really important that you don't match these up. We kind of want the petals to be different layers. And then I want some of these petals to be a little bit closer to the middle so we can see what's underneath. I'm going to do this carefully so I don't cut off some of these petals. This one on too. Now, if I had it around my house, I could even put some sunflower seeds right in the middle of my sunflower. That would be pretty fun. All right, so I'll let that sit and I can work on another flower. If I want to, I can twist them from the center. You guys can get creative. You've done 3D work recently, so hopefully you'll have some good ideas on ways to make these 3-dimensional. I'm going to glue this on the bottom, right here in the middle. Oops, that's a little bit more glue than I wanted. I'm okay if the white from the underside kind of pops out if we see some of that. Might look a little bit like a highlight or a different petal of that flower. And I'm going to put those off center so we can see the ones underneath a little bit better. All right, so I'll set this off to the side. I don't want to glue anything down yet because I may not like where I put them. All right, so I'm going to do something special with the daffodil. Daffodils have like the center, it almost looks like a little cup. And so I cut a triangle, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn it into a cone. So I want to bend it around so that it kind of does something like that. Now I could make roses this way too. So I'm going to put the glue on this side. And this can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to bend it so that this side goes over and touches that. This is not the exact shape I want on the top, but I can take my scissors once it's dry and I can fix that so that this part's not there. Now this actually looks a little bit like a calla lily too, which is another type of flower. All right, so now that I've got that cone, I want to stick it on. So I'm going to actually fold this so I have that surface area that we've talked about before. Put a little bit there and stick this on, and I need to let it dry for a little bit more, so I'm gonna have to hold it in place for a little bit longer so that it will stay. When I do that, I've got that pretty little cup that's sticking up now, so I can glue that to this. And isn't that a fun little flower? All right, I'm going to keep working and I will show you what I've got once I get closer to being done. For the next flower, I'm going to use a technique that's called paper quilling. So the first thing that I want is a bunch of skinny, long strips of paper. just gonna cut a bunch myself. And my lines aren't exactly straight, but that's okay. All right, so now that I've got all these, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut them all off. Isn't that fun? All right, and I've got this piece of paper to glue them onto because the flower that I'm gonna do is long and skinny. So what I can do now is wrap it around. I want it to be pretty tight. And you see how it's got that quill on there? So I'm gonna go ahead and do a bunch of those. Now that I have a bunch of quills, I'm going to glue them onto my other piece of purple paper to make a flower. So I even crimped around some of the edges and folded my edges, wadded some paper to make them 3D. Then I cut and glued some flowers and stems and glued my flowers on last. And here's the results. When you're done, take a picture of your vase of flowers and turn it in Google Classroom.